Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Magic the Conversation. This week, we are starting a new block, which is a new major set after the invasion block. We are not going to be dealing with Phyrexians for the time being. In fact, the storyline for the next set, which is Odyssey. Odyssey is the 24th expansion in the game series, and it was released in October of 2001. It takes place in the same plane as Dominaria, but 100 years after the Phyrexian invasion and on a different continent that we have not seen before, known as Oteria. The set symbol for Odyssey is this. It looks like a sphere that's being held up by a brass coil that is known as the Mirari. It is a powerful artifact that draws people towards it, and whoever possesses the Mirari, it pretty much makes their wishes or their thoughts into reality, but often with dire consequences, as will unfold in the story itself. As far as the denizens on Oteria, there are barbarians, dwarves, merfolk, centaur, a new anthropomorphic creature type, bird people known as Aven. And overall, there is a guild, so to speak, that pretty much rules over the continent of Oteria. They're known as the Cabal. They deal with necromancy, money. They have a pit, or it's like a coliseum where fighters can fight for glory and fame. The Cabal operates it, and they're pretty much the most wealthy community on the continent. And they do possess the Mirari in their vaults. And the main character of the story is a barbarian named Kamal. And he is drawn to the Cabal City to fight for glory, as well as many other characters, which we will see in the cards as we will get ready to talk about the set. First card up is Abandoned Outpost. Oops, what did I do? All right. It's just a non-basic land that comes in and blade tapped. You can tap it for a white, or you can tap it and sacrifice it to add one color mana to your mana pool. Pretty much if you poor man's way of color fixing. Next up, we have Abashin, the Cephalid Emperor. Just like with the Aven, a new anthropomorphic creature type, the Cephalids, they are octopi people. 6 mana, 3/3. You can tap and untap Cephalid you control to tap any target permanent. And then you could pay triple blue to tap all creatures without flying. No one can fight the tide forever. A lot of the sea is the territory under the water is fought vigorously between the Cephalid and the Merfolk. Abashin wanted full rule of the sea, and he actually acquires the Mirari during the story. He wants to increase his territory, and his wish is sort of granted, or it is granted, but he ends up flooding a third of the continent, and because the change of the water levels, it changes the tides, it creates whirlpools, and his kingdom is destroyed in the process. and he is buried beneath it. So he got his wish, but he wasn't around to see its fruition. And it also made a lot of people, including his own kingdom, suffer for it. The card itself does cost a lot of mana. I've never seen anybody actually use any of the Acephalid deck in itself. There's another legendary Cephalid in the set that I think is much better and combos a lot. Old World Micmac, hello, welcome in. Next up, we have Albertson's Desire. Here it shows him holding the Mirari in his tentacles, and it's shown him, I assume he's in the clouds or something, because this says enchanted creature has flying. But in the story, he just wanted more territory. Threshold was a new keyword ability that was introduced in Odyssey. Threshold is activated when you have 7 or more cards in your graveyard. So if you don't have 7 or more cards in your graveyard, the creature that you put the Desire on only has flying. But once you do have Threshold activated, that creature cannot be targeted by spells or abilities as well. Acceptable Losses. 4 mana as additional cost to play Acceptable Losses. You must discard a card at random from your hand. Deal 5 damage to target creature. 4 mana to deal 5 damage, and you have to discard a card at random from your hand. That's too risky. The artwork shows 2 dwarves holding an Aven as they're as they're all going to get consumed by the lava flow. Why these dwarves would sacrifice themselves in this way, we don't know. Aegis of Honor for 1 white. Pay colors. The next time an instant or sorcery spell would deal damage to you this turn, that spell deals that much damage to its controller instead. So this card hoses red burn spell strategies. But it's kind of useless against like green or white. Aether Burst. Return up to X target creature cards to their owner's hand, where X is 1 plus the number of Aether Burst cards in all graveyards when you cast it. As fleeting as a Cephalid's Promise. Here it shows some Aven just fading away. This is a common cycle. Each color gets a burst that pretty much increases its effect by the amount that are in the graveyards. Afflict, 3 mana instant. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. Draw a card. When one of the Patriarch's champions displeased him, he would only shake his finger. That was enough. The Patriarch is the ruler of the Cabal. He pretty much has black magic at the command of his fingertips. Hey Sam, welcome in. Good to see you as always. One of the main characters in the Cabal is a summoner. His name is Chainer, and he ends up becoming one of Kamal's best friends. Amogaba, 7 mana 6/6 illusion. It looks like a giant eel. It has flying. Pay 3, discard a card from your hand. You can return the Amogaba to its owner's hand. The Aven claim it feeds on thunder and rainbows. It's pretty. I mean, it looks cool. It's expensive to cast, but if the opponent tries to mess with it, you can. If you have the mana and a card to discard, you can just put it back in your hand and then recast it later. Anarchist, 5 mana 2/2. This is reprinted from Exodus. When Anarchist comes into play, you may return a sorcery card from your graveyard to your hand. Those who will not follow are doomed to lead. Ancestral Tribute, 7 mana. You gain 2 life for each card in your graveyard. Flashback was also a new mechanic introduced in Odyssey. They gave a little tombstone on the top left corner of each of the cards that did have flashback. Flashback is for instance and sorceries that you're able to cast again or from your graveyard. Most of the time they have a much larger cost than their original. In this case, 7 mana to gain 2 life for each card in your graveyard. This one is 9, 10, 11, 12 to cast it again. You better make sure you have a lot of graveyard to get your mana's worth. Angelic Wall, a 0/4 wall with flying. Is it an angel wall? No. The ancestor protects us in ways we only begin to comprehend. Mystic Elder. Animal Boneyard. Enchanted land has tap it, sacrifice a creature. You gain life equal to that creature's toughness. The animal spirits are the ancestors' grandchildren. Remember them. Mystic Elder. The artwork shows a lot of deceased animals. Well, they're skeletons anyway. Never really seen the card used. Ashen Fire Beast. 8 mana 6/6 beast. Pay red in a color. Deal 1 damage to each creature without flying. I'm not sure which impresses me most. Its thoroughness or its intensity. Matok the Lavamancer. Well, this thing has to be pretty large for it to pick up an elephant. It could clear the battlefield of weaker creatures fairly easy. You just need a lot of mana to be able to do well with it. But it's currently my favorite card of the set. I know I mentioned Atog before, and the artwork here shows all the other Atogs that have existed in Magic before. The purple one here is the original Atog. And we have Chronotog, Oratog, Foratog. I think Necrotog might be down here. But you can sacrifice an Atog. Atog gets +X/+X until end of turn where X is a sacrificed Atog's power. That's a lot of Atog talk. It relishes old-fashioned family meals. As you can see, it also is 1 mana of each color. 5/5. If you're not using Atogs, then just really doesn't do anything other than being a 5 mana 5/5. If it's your commander, and if you play the commander format, then you have all the cards at your disposal. I've only known one person to actually have an Atog deck. Or a Graft. For 2, move target enchantment. That's enchanting a permanent to another permanent that it can enchant. You gain control of that enchantment. It's not really stealing. It's more like extended borrowing. And this guard is asleep. So then this wizard is taking their enchantment, so to speak. Auramancer, 3 mana 2/2 wizard. When Auramancer comes into play, you may return an enchantment card from your graveyard back to your hand. Beauty stirs the memory like a perfume, excites the air. Avon Archer, 5 mana 2/2 flying bird soldier. Pay 3, tap it to deal 2 damage to target attacking or blocking creature. Aimed by the eyes of eagles, their arrows never miss the mark. Pretty costly for its ability. Avon Cloud Chaser, 4 mana 2/2 flying bird soldier. When Avon Cloud Chaser comes into play, destroy target enchantment. At the reapportionment, Eagle begged to be human. The ancestor granted half that prayer. Nomad Myth. A lot of the white aligned creatures in the Odyssey block are part of a nomadic camp known as the Order, and they are constantly at war with the Cabal. But each faction also has inner turmoil within, because everybody wants to be on top. Everybody wants to be the leader of their own organization. So there's a lot of internal plotting and betrayal and backstabbing throughout the story. Avon Fisher, 4 mana 2/2 bird soldier with flying. You see this bird, Spirit of Fish. When Avon Fisher dies, you may draw a card. The same spirits that catch their food today will defend their homes tomorrow. Avon Flock, 5 mana 2/3 bird soldiers. Pay 1 white. They get +1 toughness until end of turn. Just as each added feather steadies the wing, so does the flock grow stronger with each new member. A lot of birds, but they don't really have good offense. Avon Shrine. Whenever a player plays a spell, that player gains X life, where X is the number of cards in all graveyards with the same name as that spell. This helps all players, though. Avon Smoke Weaver, 4 mana 2/3 bird soldier with flying and protection from red. In a world still pain from burns, some are burned already scarred. Some are born already scarred. Aven Windreader, 5-mana, 3/3 bird. A bird soldier wizard. Pay a blue and a color if target player reveals the top card of their library. The tiniest ripple tells a story 10 fathoms deep. Balancing act. Each player chooses a number of permanents he or she controls, equal to the number of permanents controlled by the player who has the least, then sacrifices the rest. Each player discards card from his or her hand the same way. So it's almost like balance. Whoever has the amount of least, everybody else has to sacrifice cards down so everybody has the same amount. Balishan Beguiler. 3-mana, 1/1 wizard. When it deals combat damage to a player, that player reveals the top 2 cards of their library. You choose one of those cards to put into their graveyard. Balishan Griffin. 5-mana, 3/2 Griffin with flying. Pay 2, discard a card from your hand, return the Griffin to its owner's hand. That's like the same ability the Amagaba had. It helps to have an extra direction in which to run. Bamboozle, 3-mana sorcery. Target player reveals the top 4 cards of their library. You get to choose 2 of them to put in their graveyard. The rest go back on top of their library in any order. You could just get rid of their threats and put land back on top of their library if that's what they revealed. Barbarian Lunatic, 3-mana, 2/1 Barbarian. Pay 3, sacrifice it to deal 2 damage to target creature. I once saw a single Barbarian charge a band of 20 nomads. I've seen some crazy ones too. This is just one of Kamal's fellow barbarians. Not really a good card. Barbarian Ring. It's a land that taps for a red, but then it does 1 damage to you. If you have Threshold, you can pay a red, tap it, and sacrifice it to do 2 damage to any target. Bash to Bits. 4 mana to destroy an artifact, and it has flashback of 6. Showing a dwarf with his... I shouldn't say his bare hands because he's wearing gauntlets. Crushing some sort of artifact. Battle of Wits. This is another cycle. I think each color got some sort of alternate win condition in the set. This one is at the beginning of your upkeep. If you have 200 or more cards in your library, you win the game. The wizard who reads 1,000 books is powerful. The wizard who memorizes 1,000 books is insane. I have seen people win with this card. Imagine trying to bring and shuffle the deck's not even 200. It has to be more than 200 because you draw 7 cards at the beginning of your turn. At the beginning of the game, you have to draw 7 cards. So if you want to win with Battle of Wits, your deck has to be at least, I would say 210, and that's even pushing it. That's the only way you could win this with this card because there's not really any other way in the regular game to put cards out into your library from anywhere. A fun card to build around, but like I said, trying to shuffle and even get the sleeves for a deck that's more than 200 plus cards, that is insane. Battle Strain, 2-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature blocks, Battle Strain deals 1 damage to that creature's controller. The pits swallow the weak as predators swallow prey. And it's showing 2 barbarians fighting in the pits. Bearscape, 3-mana enchantment. Pay 2, remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game to put a 2/2 bear token onto the battlefield. Nature is the endless dance between life and death. Seaton the Centaur Druid. In the artwork, you can make out bears out of almost every landform. We have a bear in the mountains here. We have a bear in this mountains. A bear in the mountain in the back. Even the clouds are bears. The forest and trees are bears here. This one is a big bear sitting down. This is a bear laying down. The only place we don't see a bear is in this flowery field. But if you like bears, perfect card to have. Beast Attack. 5 mana for this weird looking beast that's trying to be like a coyote howling at this moon. Put a 4/4 beast token onto the battlefield, and it has flashback of 5, which is just like its mana cost. Beloved Chaplain. 2 mana 1/1 cleric. Protection from creatures. This card was annoying in combat. If you didn't have any way to remove him, any instants or sorceries or artifacts to get rid of him, he wasn't leaving the battlefield. He can block any creature all day long and never die from that creature. Nomad and Antuco, Eagle and Elephant, all the birds and beasts are charmed by his quiet dignity. Blazing Salvo. For 1 red, you get to deal 3 damage to a creature. Unless that creature's controller has Blazing Salvo, deal 5 damage to him or her. Barbarians equate courage with the ability to endure pain. Red in this set had a lot of either deal this damage to something or the opponent takes even more damage in order to prevent the first effect from happening. If they really wanted to keep their creature, they would take 5 damage to the face. Blessed Orator, 4 mana 1/4 cleric. Other creatures you control get +1 toughness. His quiet words fade into the night's chill, yet they burn into his listeners' minds with all the power of 1,000 suns. Blood Curdler, 2 mana 1/1 flying horror. At the beginning of your upkeep, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. Once you have Threshold, it gets +2/+2 and has at the end of your turn, remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game. Terrible card. Terrible. Don't like it one bit. Bog Wreckage. It's the black version of the Abandoned Outpost. Comes in play tapped. You can tap it for a black, or you can sacrifice it for 1 mana of any color. Bomb Squad. 4 mana 1/1 dwarf. Tap them to put a fuse counter on a creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a fuse counter on each creature that already has a fuse counter on it. Whenever a creature has 4 or more fuse counters on them, remove all fuse counters from it and destroy it. That creature's controller takes 4 damage. Very unique card for red to have. You're pretty much put time bombs on your opponent's creatures. It's kind of funny that it's showing the dwarves holding up their hands, blocking from an explosion, like we are one of the explosions. You can see, I would imagine the bombs are going off in a circle around them. Alright. Braids, the Cabal minion. 4 mana, 2/2 minion, human minion, legendary minion. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices an artifact, creature, or land. Home is where you can find a decent graveyard, and strangers can disappear without awkward questions. Braids is insane. You can see the look on her eyes. This was the look for the Cabal. Mainly, they had the steampunk goggles. Their hair was in braids. The black and purple was like their color, their symbolized colors. And what the Cabal usually did is they would send their apprentices and their wizards out into the Croson Forest, and they would find beasts, either dead or alive, and then they would capture the souls of these beasts, and then they'd be able to summon them at their will. Almost like Pokemon. Just more dark. Buried Alive. Search your library for up to 3 creature cards and put them into your graveyard, then shuffle your library. This is reprinted from Weatherlight, I believe. The scrape of shovels and the tumble of cold dirt soon muffled their pleas. Here it shows us as a POV of somebody being buried alive. The Cabal is shoveling dirt in our faces as we hold up our hands as we're getting dirt. thrown on us for lack of a better description. I forgot about this card. Burning Sands, 5-mana enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, that creature's controller sacrifices a land. Pain teaches lessons no scholar can. And we see a cephalid not having a good time out of the water here. Next up is Cabal Inquisitor. Does nothing. It's just a 1/1. When you have Threshold, though, you can pay 2, tap it, remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game. Target player discards a card from his or her hand. Play this ability only time you could play a sorcery. Not good. I remember seeing this card way back in the day, and I'm like, this card sucks. Cabal Patriarch. Here's the big boss himself. 6 mana, 5/5 wizard. Pay 3 and sacrifice a creature. Target creature gets -2/-2 until end of turn. You could also pay 3 and remove a creature from your graveyard from the game. Target creature also gets -2/-2 until end of turn. He's very outdated. There are a lot of better black creatures to be able to give creatures -/- out there. Even for his time, I've never seen anybody use Cabal Patriarch. Cabal Pit, you can tap it for a black and it does 1 damage to you, or you can pay a black, tap it, sacrifice it to give target creature -2/-2 until end of turn if you had Threshold. This is where the fights would happen. Cabal Shrine. Whenever a player plays a spell, that player discards X cards from their hand, where X is the number of cards in all graveyards with the same name as that spell. Call of the Herd. This was a popular tournament card. 3 mana for a 3/3 elephant token, and then on the next turn you could just pay 4 to flashback it to get another 3/3 elephant token. Next up is Cantivore. 3 mana Lurgoyf. Attacking doesn't cause it to tap, so it has Vigilance. Its power and toughness its power and toughness is equal to the number of enchantments in all graveyards. So you want to build an enchantment heavy white deck, which is very, very easy. Very, very easy to do. Careful study. For 1 blue, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards from your hand. Books are like crops. They must be thinned for best yield. This is good for Necromance decks because you can discard the creatures that you want to resurrect from your graveyard while searching for the cards that you need to do that. Cartographer, 3 mana 2/2 townsfolk. When Cartographer comes into play, you may return a land from your graveyard to your hand. Finding the way once is luck. Finding the way twice takes a good map. Catalyst Stone, 2 mana artifact. Flashback cost you pay, cost up to 2 less. Flashback cost your opponents pays, cost up to 2 more. The gem's incandescence invades the dreams of all who see them. Caustic Tar, 6 mana enchantment that goes on a land. Tap the enchanted land, target player loses 3 life. This was a good way to still affect your opponent's life total, even if you don't have any creatures out. Excuse me. Twisted Magic, Twisted Fate, force the land to ooze with hate. Cabal Chant. And why... I don't know why these people are swimming in this tar. If I would step in tar, I'd just get the heck out. Unless, like, they were really stuck like the La Brea tar pits. Ceasefire. I don't know if I've ever... seen this card before because these faces are kind of, this face is screaming, but these two are like smiling. Anyway, for 3 mana, target player cannot play creature spells this turn. Draw a card. It is an instant, so white can stop your opponent completely from playing creatures for 1 turn. When the crimson fades from the magical embers, a final wisp of smoke will rise. Soon after, hostilities will begin anew. Centaur Garden, tap it for a green, deals 1 damage to you. If you have Threshold, target creature will get +3/+3 until end of turn if you tap and sacrifice it. Cephalid Broker, 4 mana 2/2. Cephalid, tap it, target player draws 2 cards and discards 2 cards from their hand. Cephalids value the free exchange of ideas, except for the free part. Cephalid Colosseum, deals 1 damage to you every time you tap it for a blue. If you have Threshold, target player draws 3 cards and discards 3 cards from their hand. That's pretty a lot of card draw. Cephalid Looter, 3 mana Cephalid. It's a 2/1. Tap it, target player draws a card, then discards a card from their hand. Amazing, isn't it? What humans will throw away when they're drowning. Cephalid Retainer, 4 mana 2/3 Cephalid. Pay 2 blue, tap target creature without flying. It's like Flood. Cephalids whisper flattery in your ear, put jewels in your hand, spin dreams in your head, and stick knives in your back. Don't trust an octopus. Cephalid Scout, 2 mana 1/1 flying. Cephalid Wizard, pay 3, sacrifice a land to draw a card. The more they survey the dreadful dry expanses, the more the cephalids thirst to tame them. Kind of funny to see like an octopus man fly across the sky. Cephalid Shrine. Whenever a player plays a spell, counter that spell unless that player pays X additional mana, where X is the number of cards in all graveyards with the same name as that spell. Chain Flinger, 4 mana 2/2 beast, pay 2, tap it, deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And it has Threshold where you pay 3, tap it, deal 2 damage to target creature or player. Chamber of Manipulation. You enchant a land, tap it, discard a card from your hand, gain control of target creature until end of turn. Politics is just a subtle form of mind control, and cephalids are master politicians. We're getting government with these cards. Chance Encounter, 4 mana enchantment. Whenever you win a coin flip, put a luck counter on Chance Encounter. At the beginning of your turn, if Chance Encounter has 10 or more luck counters on it, you win the game. So all you got to do is win at least 10 coin flips. The more unlikely the victory, the more memorable the success. I've had a coin flip deck before. It was a lot of fun. In a future set, there is an artifact called Krark's Thumb. Every time you would flip a coin, you get to flip 2 coins, and you get to choose which of the 2 coin flips is the successful one. So this with Chance Encounter. Defensive-wise, it did not have much defensive-wise, but if I got real lucky, I could win the game without ever attacking the opponent. Charmed Pendant, 4 mana artifact. Tap it, put the top card of your library into your graveyard. For each colored mana symbol in that card's mana cost, add 1 mana of that color to your mana pool. Play this ability only anytime you could play an instant. For example, if the card's mana cost is 3 blue, blue, black, you only get a blue, blue, black to your mana pool. Man, what a terrible artifact. This should cost much less. I mean, even at 3 mana, it's bad. I don't like it at all. Chatter of the Squirrel. Put a 1/1 squirrel token onto the battlefield, and it has a flashback of 2. And that squirrel, he'd be spitting bubble gum out of his mouth or something. That's some pink fleshy froth. Childhood Horror. 4 mana, 2/2 flying. Horror, when you have Threshold, it gets +2/+2 and can't block. So, not good by itself. If you have Threshold, it becomes a 4/4 with flying that can't block for 4 mana. I've seen artwork that's way better for this that would represent a Childhood Horror. Chlorophynt. 3 mana elemental. Is it a plant? No, just an elemental. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on Chlorophynt. He starts out as a 1/1, so every turn he grows stronger. If you have Threshold, he gets an additional +1/+1 counter during your upkeep. So this card could get out of hand really quickly. Really good green card. Coffin Purge for 1 black. Remove target card in a graveyard from the game, and it has flashback of a black. Ghouls like to feast on the dead, and this ghoul here is definitely ripping open a grave so he can feast away. This was an important card to have because, like I said, Necromancy was still a popular strategy. And because this is an instant, if the opponent tries to resurrect one of their creatures, you can cast Coffin Purge in response to them doing so. Thus, you would remove the creature they're trying to resurrect from the game. And then they're kind of dead in the water. Cognivore. This costs 8 mana. It has flying, and its power toughness are each equal to the number of instants in all graveyards. Blue is a popular color for instants. You just got to get over this giant mana cost. Concentrate. 4 mana, draw 3 cards. The treasures in my mind is greater than any worldly glory. Confessor for 1 white. Whenever a player discards a card from his or her hand, you may gain 1 life. There will be gains for our losses. There will be rights for our wrongs. Crashing Centaur, 6 mana, 3/4 Centaur. Pay a green, discard a card from your hand. Crashing Centaur gains trample until end of turn. If you have Threshold, it gets +2/+2 and cannot be the target of spells or abilities. So if you have Threshold, it'll be a 5/6 for 6 when you have to discard a card to give it trample. The power level for Odyssey really dropped. I know the Urza block's power level was just like unheard of. Super powerful. Memory Jar getting banned before the card even came out. And then the Invasion block, or I should say the Mercadian Mass block, kind of dimmed it down a little bit. And then the Invasion block ended up bringing it back up because they had a lot of good cards like Vindicate, Terminate, Pernicious Deed. So then when Odyssey came around, it really dropped the power level, I think lower than it was before Tempest. I think we're going way back to the Mirage block as far as power level goes. We see a lot of heavy, large mana costing creatures that aren't as good starting out. Threshold only makes them worth the mana that you would initially pay, and there's a lot of cards being discarded in order to get the most from your creature. Moving on, the Crypt Keeper is next. Tales from the Crypt. This guy looks nothing like him. I guess he resembles him because he's a zombie, but you can sacrifice the Crypt Keeper to remove target card in a graveyard from the game. To unearth its dinner, it enters itself. Crystal Quarry, taps for a colorless, or you can pay 5 colorless and tap it to add 1 mana of each color to your mana pool. How tragic that greed eclipses beauty. Seaton the Centaur Druid. How tragic indeed. Cultural Exchange. 6 mana, choose any number of creatures target player controls. Choose the same number of creatures another target player controls. Those players exchange control of those creatures. We have some raccoon-looking squirrel fox things. I don't know exactly what these are. I know these are crocodiles. prehistoric crocodiles in the back. And they're looking mighty suspicious. Ugh, Cursed Monstrosity. It's like a weird looking mole. 5 mana, 4/3 flying. Whenever Cursed Monstrosity becomes the target of a spell or ability, sacrifice it unless you discard a land card from your hand. Run away. It's an run away. It's a flavor text from Nomad. Also, another bad card. If it's going to get targeted, you have to end up discarding land to keep it alive. You can just play much better creatures for 5 mana. Darkwater Catacombs. These are the signet lands where you have to pay a colorless and tap it to get the mana out of it. So if you play these lands on the first turn, you're not even going to be able to activate them. Murky Otarian Tides hide the forgotten treacheries of the Phyrexian War. Darkwater Egg. Pay 2, tap, sacrifice it to add a black-blue to mana pool, draw a card. Do you thirst for knowledge no matter the cost? Watnik, the Master Glassblower. Decaying Soil. At the beginning of your upkeep, remove a card in your graveyard from the game. Once you have Threshold, whenever a non-token creature dies, you may pay 1. If you do, return that card to your hand. Poor Man's Necromancy. Decimate. This guy got laser blasted or magic blasted in the chest and the shoulder. His sword got shattered. The ground with that he's got a fall and got shattered. For 4 mana, destroy target artifact, creature, enchantment, and land. Anyone can admire creation. Only a barbarian sees the beauty in demolition. Kamal the Pitfire. Now this sounds like a powerful card, but there's one drawback to it. The opponent has to have, or at least on the field, there has to be 1 artifact, 1 creature, 1 enchantment, and a land. There's always got to be a land out, because how would you cast it if there's no land out? But if the opponent doesn't have an artifact out, or if there is no artifact out, then you can't even cast the card. If you have an artifact and an enchantment, and the opponent just has a creature and lands, you have to end up destroying your artifact and your enchantment if they have the land. Decompose. 2 mana, remove up to 3 target cards in a single graveyard from the game. Like I said, there's a lot of graveyard removal in this. Sheesh, how am I supposed to make a decent living around here? Cabal Grave Robber. Dedicated Martyr. For 1 white, pay white, sacrifice him, gain 3 life. If he's so willing to suffer for his cause, then by all means, let us oblige him. The Cabal Patriarch. Sorry, guys. Deep Reconnaissance. 3 mana. Search your library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. Then shuffle your library, and it has flashback of 5. Delaying Shield. For 4, if you would be dealt damage, put that many delay counters on Delaying Shield instead. Beginning of your upkeep, remove all delay counters from Delaying Shield. For each counter removed in this way, you lose 1 life unless you pay 2 colorless mana. Deluge. 3 mana, tap all creatures without flying. From the sea came all life, and to the sea it will return. The sooner the better. Here it shows the massive flood. You can see these dwarves got swept away in the current. I assume these guys are drowned. They're just blue, but this guy's still alive and breathing for his life. Dematerialize. 4 mana, return target permanent to its owner's hand, and it has flashback of 7. Demolish, reprinted, pay for, destroy target artifact or land. These dwarves don't like these dwarves don't like shit. Pound the steel and fit to bits. Doesn't work, or no. Pound the steel until it fits. Doesn't work, bash to bits. That's how I fix my stuff. Demoralize for 3. Each creature can't be blocked this turn except by 2 or more creatures. Eventually that would become the keyword menace. Has threshold where creatures can't block this turn. And this one barbarian is fighting off the order. Deserted Temple. Taps for a colorless. Pay 1, tap it. Untap target land. A monument to the long forgotten gods, it stands as a tribute to the fleeting nature of human ways. Devoted Caretaker. For 1 white, pay white, tap it. Target permanent you control gains protection from instants and sorceries until end of turn. Her eyes blaze with the strength of 20 shields. Every glance is a salvation. Diabolic Tutor. For 4, you can search your library for any card and put it into your hand. Shuffle afterwards. The best ideas often come from the worst minds. I like the artwork because there's a cobra on the altar. I love snakes, and cobras are among one of my favorite snake species. Diligent Farmhand, a 1/1 druid. Pay 2, sacrifice Diligent Farmhand to search your library for a basic land and put it into play tapped. When Diligent Farmhand is in your graveyard, it counts as a Muscle Burst. Muscle Burst will be a card that will later appear down the list. Dirty Were-Rat. You dirty Were-Rat. 4 mana, 2/3. Pay a black, discard a card, regenerate it. Once you have threshold, it becomes a 4/5 that cannot block. Divert. For 1 blue. Change the target spell with a single target unless that spell's controller pays 2. I would hate if I opened this in a pack and this was my rare. What's the fun of being a wizard if you can't mess with people's heads? That's true. Divine Sacrament. For 3, white creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. Oh, no, not. They just get white creatures. White creatures get +1/+1. My brain's just ripping apart now. If you have threshold, white creatures get an additional +1/+1. Their whispered prayers rally the nomads better than any war cry could. Too bad it also helps your opponent if they're playing white. Dogged Hunter. For 3, tap him to destroy target creature token. The relationship between hunter and hunted knows nothing of alliances. Dreamwinder. 4 mana, 4/3 serpent. They cannot attack unless the defending player has an island. You can sacrifice one of your own islands to turn a land into an island until end of turn. Druid Lyrist. A green, tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target enchantment. The druids in the forest are in perfect harmony. They sing the same songs. Druid's Call. You put it on one of your creatures. Whenever the enchanted creature is dealt damage, its controller gets that many 1/1 squirrel tokens. Suffer the little creatures, for they may yet rise up and beat you senseless. Dusk Imp. 3 mana, 2/1 imp with flying. It despises humans and squirrels and beasts and dwarves and cephalids. Well, it despises just about everything. The artwork is cool, but he isn't that good of a card. Dwarven Grunt. 1/1 for 1 red with Mountain Walk, meaning he'll be unblockable against other mountains. Hard as stone and twice as stubborn. A dwarven complement. Dwarven Recruiter. When they come into play, search your library for any number of dwarves, shuffle your library, then put them on top in any order. Just like Goblin Recruiter, but with dwarves instead. Dwarven Shrine. Whenever a player plays a spell, Dwarven Shrine deals X damage to that player, where X is twice the number of cards in all graveyards with the same name as that spell. Dwarven Strike Force. 5 mana, 4/3. Discard a card at random from your hand. They gain first strike and haste until end of turn. Any given foothill may hide a dozen dwarfs waiting to spill from the tunnels like fire ants. Earnest Fellowship. Each creature has protection from its own colors. The world has enough strife as it is. Where would we be if we turned against each other? Piano the Nomad Captain. Earth Rift, destroy target land, and it has flashback of 7. Elephant Ambush, 4 mana, put a 3/3 elephant token into play. This is a much weaker version of Call of the Herd because it does the same thing, but it costs way more mana. Ember Beast, 3 mana for a 3/4 beast. It cannot attack or block by itself. Spot 1 Ember Beast attack. Spot a second, best fall back. Dwarven saying. It looks more like a dinosaur than a beast. Embolden. Wait, did they change it? No, it's still just a beast. Prevent the next 4 damage that will be dealt this turn to any number of creatures and or players, divided as you choose, and it has flashback. Engulfing Flames. This poor elephant's on fire. Engulfing Flames deals 1 damage to our creature. It can't be regenerated, and it has flashback. Entomb. Search your library for a creature card and put it in your graveyard, then shuffle your library. It's just like Buried Alive, but you only do it for once. The grave is the safest place to store ill-gotten treasures. Epicenter. Target player sacrifices a land, and if you have Threshold, all players sacrifice all their lands. Sometimes destruction is Dominion's way of rebuilding. Sometimes it's not. Escape Artist. Escape Artist is unblockable. It's a 1/1 wizard. Pay a blue, discard a card from your hand, return it to its owner's hand. Not even my shadow knows where I am. It's pretty skilled. Execute. For 3, destroy target white creature, cannot be regenerated. Draw a card. Any fool who would die for honor is better off dead. Cabal Patriarch. Extract. Search target player's library for a card and remove that card from the game. Then that player shuffles their library for 1 blue. To say Nixar had a splitting headache would be a bit of an understatement. Definitely dissected Nixar's brain. Face of Fear. 6 mana for a 3/4. Looks like a living intestines. Pay 3, discard a card from your hand. Face of Fear gains fear until end of turn. It's only frightened 5 people to death. Not my best work. From Braids of Dementia Summoner. Another absolutely terrible card. Overcosted mana. Its power and toughness sucks compared to both its ability and its casting cost. Famished Ghoul. 4 mana for a 3/2 zombie. Pay 2, sacrifice the ghoul. Remove up to 2 cards in a graveyard from the game. Memories have distinct tastes. Its favorites are the sickly sweetness of lost love and the bitter smokiness of cruel murder. The flavor text on this card, it's funny, flavor text, is the only good thing about this card, mostly. It's better than the Faces of Fear card, though. Fervent Denial. For 5 mana, counter target spell, and it has a flashback of 7. This guy's brain's about to pop out of his head. Your tenacity is admirable and futile. Quote from Emperor Abishan. Filthy Cur. 2 mana for a 2/2 dog. Whenever Filthy Cur is dealt damage, you lose that much life. Some things even fleas won't bite. Firebolt. For 1 red, deal 2 damage to any target, and it has a flashback of 5. Reach out and torch someone. That's funny. Flame Burst. Deals X damage to target creature player, where X is 2 plus the number of flame bursts in all graveyards. As hot as a dwarf's rage. Fledgling Imp. 3 mana 2/2 Imp with flying. I'm sorry, it doesn't have flying. You have to pay a black and discard a card from your hand to give it flying. Imps aren't born knowing how to fly, just how to annoy. We have a forest. It looks like a pine flatwood forest that would be in close to fall. Here we have a much lusher overgrown forest. You see ferns, beautiful, giant trees. Oh, this is a beautiful autumn forest. All the different colors of the leaves, the different species of trees. Even the grass has starting to turn copper. I love this forest. Probably one of my favorite forests in the game. And then this forest is more dense. We have a trail here. I love going hiking. I'm still trying to do the rest of the Florida Trail. It's just been so hot lately. But this is another great forest. Odyssey had some good artwork for their lands. Frenetic Ogre, 5 mana, 2/3 Ogre. Pay a red, discard a card at random from your hand. The Frenetic Ogre gets power +3 until end of turn. The best thing about ogres is that they never try to sneak up on you. This card's artwork is cool. Fright Crawler, 2 mana for a 1/1. It has Fear, which it can't be blocked except by artifact and or black creatures. Once you have Threshold, it gets +2/+2 and cannot block. This is my new creature from the set. It reminds me of the Thing, and the artwork is just phenomenal. Gallantry, 2 mana. Target blocking creature gets +4/+4 until end of turn. Draw a card. The courageous accomplish more in a single moment than the cowardly do in a lifetime. This card is a little bit noteworthy because there's another card that pretty much is the other half of the artwork. There's more going on in this card, but it'll come much later on our list. Ghastly Demise, for 1 black, destroy target non-black creature if its toughness is less than or equal to the number of cards in your graveyard. Anyone can snap her fingers and yank a soul. I prefer to kill creatively. The only thing I don't like about this card, this artwork, it shows the Avon. He's caught in these dark tendrils, but I mean, he looks annoyed. He's dying. I mean, he should have a look of fear or shock on his face, but he just looks like he doesn't care, or like this is an everyday thing to him. Gorilla Titan, 5 mana, 4/4 trample. Gorilla Titan gets +4/+4 as long as there are no cards in your graveyard. Now this is a good card. If you can build your deck around this to make sure you don't have any like instants or sorceries. And I mean, if your creatures die, you might want to put cards that either put the cards back in your hand from your graveyard or exile cards from your graveyard. But 5 mana for an 8/8 trample, like. Gorilla Titan doesn't even have a drawback. 5 mana for a 4/4 trample is good. I think this card should have seen more play. I think I have one, but I've only used it in an ape deck. Simian Grunts and Gorilla Titan, probably the 2 best apes. Oh no. There's a ape that's in current Magic today that's pretty damn good. We're getting ahead of ourselves. Graceful Antelope, 4 mana for a 1/4 Antelope with Plains Walk, meaning it's a Planeswalker. No, it just can't be blocked if the defending player has a Plains. Whenever Graceful Antelope deals combat damage to a player, target land they control becomes a Plains until Graceful Antelope leaves play. So if the opponent is not playing white, you can lock them out of their lands. Gravedigger is reprinted from Tempest. When Gravedigger comes into play, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. Oddly, no one questioned the Cabal's wisdom in hiring a zombie to work at the cemetery. Gravestorm. This is a great card. Triple black. At the beginning of your upkeep, target opponent may remove a card in their graveyard from the game. If they don't, you draw a card. And card draw is one of the most powerful tools in the game. Ground Seal. When it comes into play, draw a card. Cards in graveyards cannot be the target of spells or abilities. This shuts down necro strategies. Let all we have buried be buried forever. Seaton the Centaur Druid. Halberdier. 4 mana for a 3/1 first strike. His reputation precedes him, and so does his weapon. Basic Barbarian. Hallowed Healer. 3 mana 1/1 Cleric. Tap him to prevent 2 damage that would be dealt to any target. If you have Threshold, that damage prevention becomes 4 instead. Haunting Echoes. 5 mana. Remove all cards in target player's graveyard other than basic lands from the game. Search that player's... I gotta reread this. Remove all cards in target player's graveyard other than basic lands from the game. Search that player's library for all cards with the same names as the ones removed from their graveyard and also remove them from the game. This was great for mill strategies because a lot of times people, if you weren't, not in Commander but in other formats, people are going to have 2, most of the time 4 of the same card depending on how great it is. Removing all copies of it not only thins their deck out, but it also takes out a lot of their key threats, and this shuts down combos. Hint of Insanity. For 3, target player reveals his or her hand. That player discards from it all non-land cards with the same name as another card in their hand. Practice makes perfect, but obsession makes better. Ugh, what a terrible rare. Holistic Wisdom. 3 mana enchantment. Pay 2, remove a card in your hand from the game. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand that shares a type with the card that you removed. So if you want to return a creature, you have to remove a creature from the game. If you want to return an enchantment, you have to remove an enchantment from the game. Howling Gale deals 1 damage to each creature with flying and each player, and it has a flashback. Immobilizing Ink. Enchanted creature doesn't untap during its control's untap step. Enchanted creature has pay 1, discard a card from your hand to untap this creature. I don't know. The facial expression here on this is what like Ghastly Demise artwork should have. Not only is this person being drowned underwater, it's also being constricted by tentacles, and the ink from the cephalid is immobilizing it. Unless this wizard could breathe underwater, this I think should have been the artwork for Ghastly Demise. And then immobilizing ink could have been what that bird is because he's not dying, he's just immobilized. Impulsive Maneuvers. Whenever a creature attacks, flip a coin. If you win the flip, the next time that creature would deal damage this turn, double that damage. If you lose the flip, prevent damage that creature would deal. Another coin flip card. Infected Vermin. 3 mana, 1/1 rat. Pay 3. Infected Vermin deals 1 damage to each creature and player. If you have Threshold, you can pay 4, and it does 3 damage to each creature and player. Infected. Innocent Blood. For 1 black, each player sacrifices a creature. A great card. Zombies mourn for the living and celebrate those who will soon be given the gift of death. Iridescent Angel. For 7, it's a 4/4 with flying, protection from all colors. She enraptures all, encompasses all, and endures all. Here's an island helicopter view. We see some pine trees. This island we're swinging by. We got a nice little coast here, nice little beach. Faraway view of this island with some mountains on it. And this island looks more arid, low tide. I like the forests better. Ivy Elemental. Cost a green and X, comes into play with X +1/+1 counters on it. In the gardens of the centaurs, many travelers have mysteriously vanished while admiring the elaborate topiaries. The Ivy Elemental ate them. Junk Golem. For 4, it comes into play with 3 +1/+1 counters on it. At the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice Junk Golem unless you remove a counter from it. You pay 1 to discard a card from your hand to add a +1/+1 counter to it. So to keep it alive, you have to start throwing cards away. Here's the main hero of this story, Kamal the Pit Fighter. 6 mana for a 6/1 barbarian with haste. Tap him to deal 3 damage to any target. I didn't come to play, I came to win. He wants some Mirari, and it keeps escaping his grasp. During the tournament that he almost becomes a champion in, The tournament is interrupted, Team Rocket style, by a dragon. Kamal ends up killing the dragon, but the dragon's body falls on him and pins him underneath. And one of the bird soldiers, Lieutenant Kurtar, takes credit for killing the dragon, and he takes Mirari as his prize and then flies back to the Order's encampment. So then Kamal, like I said, Kamal wants that Mirari orb, so he follows Kurtar after that happens. Kamal's desire. Chain creature has first strike, and if you have threshold, he gets +3 power. We don't really know what Kamal desires yet. He started out as a barbarian, and he just felt the pull of the Mirari towards him. He just knows he wants it. He doesn't know why yet. Karmic Justice. For 3, whenever a spell or ability an opponent controls destroys a non-creature card that you had, you can destroy any permanent that they control. I just mentioned Kurtar. This was the lieutenant who stole the victory away from Kamal. Chain creature cannot attack, and the chain creature can't block if you have threshold. Kurtar wants to lead the order, but the order is currently being led by Piana. Kurtar's Wrath. For 6, destroy all creatures. They cannot be regenerated. If you have threshold, after destroying all creatures, put 2 1/1 spirit tokens onto the battlefield. Now, when Kurtar gets the Mirari, he's the first one that's able to activate it. What Kurtar wants to do, he wants to eradicate the Cabal, but Piana is more of a peaceful leader. Kurtar thinks she's too soft, and he wants to overthrow her command. He wishes that purity and to be the best, and then the Mirari ends up activating. It sends a shockwave through the entire camp, turning everyone. I forgot exactly if it's to stone. In the artwork, they're being turned to stone, or maybe marble. I'm not sure in the book if they were turned to gold, but I know Kurtar himself, he's the first one. He turns into a statue as he's holding the Mirari. And then everyone else at the camp that happens to. Kamal shows up too late. I mean, it's good that he showed up late. Otherwise, he would have been consumed in the Mirari's blast. But before he can grab the Mirari, Ambassador Loquatus's champion, Turg, who is a giant mutated frog, takes it away and takes it underwater. And then that's how Emperor Abishan, the Cephalid Lord, gets it and causes the Great Flood. And then the merfolk, Ambassador Loquatus, he ends up possessing the Mirari, and then that's where the story ends for Odyssey. It will continue in the next set of tournament. But we're not done with the cards yet. Croson Archer, 4 mana, 2/3 Centaur. It has reach, meaning it can block creatures with flying. Pay a green, discard a card from your hand. The Archer gets +2 toughness until end of turn. Croson Avenger, 3 mana for a 3/1 with trample. If you have threshold, you can regenerate the Croson Avenger. Croson Beast, 4 mana for a 1/1 squirrel beast. So by itself, not good. If you have threshold, it gets +7/+7 until, or as long as you have threshold, it gets +7/+7. So once you have threshold, it becomes a giant squirrel monster. 4 mana for an 8/8. It's good. It doesn't have trample. By giving it trample, it'd be awesome. Those who see the squirrels go underground in the winter aren't ready for what emerges in spring. It's almost like Sandy from SpongeBob when she's hibernating. Loquatus's Creativity. For 5, target player draws cards equal to the number of cards in his or her hand, then discards that many cards. One never knows when inspiration will bubble up. Last rites. Discard any number of cards from your hand. Target player reveals his or her hand. Then you choose an online card from it for each card you discarded. That player must discard those cards. Lava Blister. Destroy target non-basic land unless their controller has Lava Blister. Deal 6 damage to them. To treat flesh wounds, use earth. To treat earth wounds, use flesh. Barbarian saying. Leaf Dancer. It's a 3-mana 2/2 centaur with Forest Walk. A Leaf Dancer sweeps through the forest like a spring breeze, evading even the sharpest eyes and ears. Here's Lieutenant Kurtar. For 3, he's a 2/2 flying bird soldier. Pay 2, sacrifice him to remove target attacking creature from the game. His strengths are pride, devotion, and ambition. His weaknesses are the same. Piana the Nomad Captain. Administering her lieutenant. Life Burst. Target player gains 4 life, then gains 4 life for each Life Burst card in each graveyard. As uplifting as a mystic stream. Good artwork. It almost looks like a photograph. Limestone Golem. For 6, it's a 3/4. Pay 2, sacrifice Limestone Golem. Target player draws a card. This card costs way too much to cast. Dwarves have been known to take pickaxes to their own creations, hoping to discover treasures within them. Dumb dwarves. Liquid Fire. For 6, Liquid Fire deals 5 damage divided as you choose among target creature and that creature's controller. There's no such thing as little bit of lava. This imp is getting... He's melting. Lithatog. For 3, it's a 1/2. Sacrifice an artifact, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Sacrifice a land, he gets +1/+1 until end of turn. And he has a pierced chin. Luminous Guardian. For 4, it's a 1/4. Pay a white. Luminous Guardian gets +1 toughness until end of turn. Pay 2, it can block an additional creature this turn. There is no victory without virtue. Mad Dog. 2 mana for a 2/2 dog. At the end of your turn, if Mad Dog did not attack or come under your control, sacrifice it. The bones it buries may be yours. Ron Spencer, my favorite Magic the Gathering artist, drew this, and I love it. There isn't a hound for each color in this set. We already saw Filthy Cur. Mad Dog is the second one. Mad Dog, the artwork is my favorite, but it's not my favorite dog from the 5. The bones it buries may be yours. I don't know if I said its flavor text yet or not. Magma Vein. It's enchantment for 3. Pay red, sacrifice a land, deal 1 damage to each creature without flying. Standing near a volcano. It's an expression meaning you were asking for it. Standing near a volcano, buddy. Magnavore. 4 mana. Haste. Magnavore's power and toughness to reach equal to the number of sorcery cards in all graveyards. I've been listening to Macklemore too much. Take Magnavore to the thrift shop. Malevolent Awakening. For 3, pay 3, sacrifice a creature, return a creature from your graveyard to your hand. The most popular pit fighters are brought back for encore performances. So once a popular pit fighter dies in combat, the Cabal pretty much claim their soul and resurrect them to fight for them for all eternity. Or until the Cabal are defeated. Master Apothecary. For triple white, tap an untapped cleric you control to prevent the next 2 damage that will be dealt to any target this turn. It takes a remarkable cleric to turn a group of healers into a hospital. If you have a cleric deck, this cleric is a must. Metamorphic Worm. For 5 mana, it's a 3/3 elephant worm. If you have Threshold, it gets +4/+4 until end of turn, becoming a 7/7 for 5. Only a handful have ever seen it transform, or from the worm's perspective, only a mouthful. Milliken. For 2, it's a 0/1. Is it a construct? Yep. Tap it, put the top card of your library into your graveyard, add 1 colorless mana to your mana pool. The Toymaker frowned in bewilderment. None of his creations had ever sneezed before. He didn't even have a nose. Mind Burst. Target player discards X cards from their hand, where X is 1 plus the number of Mind Burst cards in all graveyards. As haunting as a zombie's curse. Mind Slicer. For 4 mana, it's a 4/3 horror. When Mind Slicer is put into a graveyard from play, each player discards their entire hand. It is the thing that goes bump in the night. It almost looks like a Phyrexian, but this cool looking creature is my favorite card in the set, I believe. I'm just going from core memory. I don't remember any other creature that I like better than Mind Slicer. The artwork is great. The fact that each player has to discard their hand once the Mind Slicer dies. He is really good in an aggressive deck if you already have like most of your cards out on the field already. Maybe you're just holding like basic lands back or just creatures that won't really help you in the moment. I like Mind Slicer a lot. Favorite card of the set. Mind Layer for 4. 1/1 dwarf. Pay 2. Put a mind counter on target land. When a land with a mind counter becomes tapped, destroy it. When Mind Layer dies or leaves play, remove all mind counters from all lands. These dwarves love dropping explosives. Minotaur Explorer. 2 mana 3/3. When they come to play, sacrifice it unless you discard a card at random from your hand. It's a ginger Minotaur. After the invasion devastated the Tallroom and Hurloon tribes, the survivors began to search for other Minotaurs. Here is the aforementioned Mirari. For 5, whenever you play an instant or sorcery spell, you may pay 3 additional mana. If you do, copy that spell. You get to choose new targets for that spell's copy. It offers you what you want, not what you need. Braids the Dimension Summoner. And this Mirari would cause a lot to happen. Molten Influence for 2. Counter target instant or sorcery spell unless unless the controller of that spell has Molten Influence, do 4 damage to them. Lavamancers make simple requests. Obey or die. Moment's Peace. Prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn for 2. And it has flashback of 3. So it's a fog that you can use twice. Morbid Hunger deals 3 damage to target creature or player. You gain 3 life. And it has a heavy flashback of 9. Its initial mana cost is heavy too. 6. Outdated. Morgue Theft. For 2, return target creature from your graveyard to your hand, and it has a flashback of 5. Mortivore. For 4, its power tufts are equal to the number of creatures in all graveyards, and it has regeneration. Probably the best of all the Lurgoyfs in the set. Mossfire Egg. It's the egg artifact that you can sacrifice to get a red or green and draw a card. Can you feel your instincts overwhelm your reason? Watnik, the Master Glowblower. Mossfire Valley. I like the little towers here. And there's a river in the background. Looks really cool. Lush growth spreads like a ferocious blaze across the Otarian hillsides. Here's a snow-covered mountain. I mean, the mountains, the name of the land is not Snow-Covered Mountain. It's just in the artwork. Here's another one with some trees. Happy little trees Bob Ross would like. This one has the polar caps are melting into streams here. Assume this is where the barbarians get their water. And this mountain, we have a lake here. Pretty reflection. And the sun is somewhere around here. I don't know if it's sunrise or sunset. I want to say sunset. Mudhole. 3 mana. Target player removes all land cards in their graveyard from the game. Doing okay back there, Tarv? Tarv? The artwork shows a dwarf. He almost looks like a homeless guy who stepped in shit. Here's Muscle Burst. Target creature gets +X into end of turn, where X is 3, plus the number of Muscle Burst cards in all graveyards, as strong as a Centaur's will. We saw the Devoted Caretaker, the Druid. He counts as a Muscle Burst when he's in the graveyard. I don't remember if there's other like creatures in the set that count as another card. Mystic Crusader, 3 mana for a 2/1 protect from black and red, and it has threshold, meaning it gets +1/+1 and flying until as long as you have the threshold. Another good tournament card. Black and red could not touch this card a lot. Mystic Enforcer, 3/3 protection from black, and it gets another +3/+3 if you have threshold, and also gains flying. Again, this hose is black. Mystic Penitent, it has vigilance, and when you have threshold, it gets +1/+1 and flying. Pretty decent. Mystic Visionary, 2 mana 2/1 Nomad Mystic. If you have threshold, it has flying. They even are Heralds of Divinity. The greatest glory is to join them in the sky. This card's not good. Mystic Zealot for 4. If you have threshold, it gets +1/+1 and flying, so it'll become a 3/5 flying for 4. Not worth it. Nomad youths aspire to be one of 2 roles in the tribe, a priest or warrior. Their secret dream is to become both. Nantuko Disciple for 4. It's a 2/2 insect druid. Pay a green, tap it, target creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. Unanswered prayers are themselves answers. Nantuko Teaching. In addition to the cephalid and the Aven, there is a bug people, and they're the Nantuko. Nantuko Elder, you can tap them for a colorless and a green. Plant a field with wishes, and you will grow more wishes. Nantuko Teachings. Nantuko Mentor, for 3, it's a 1/1. Pay 3, tap it. Target creature gets +X/+X until end of turn, where X is that creature's power. That which grows without roots cannot be uprooted. Nantuko Teachings. Nantuko Shrine. Whenever a player plays a spell, that player puts X 1/1 squirrel tokens onto the battlefield, where X is the number of all cards in graveyards with the same name as that spell. Need for Speed. Sacrifice a land. Target creature gains haste until end of turn. His feet buckled the ground. His hands cut the wind to ribbons, and he was gone. I don't know. I don't think it's worth sacrificing lands to give your creatures haste. Nefarious Lich for 4 black. Enchantment. If you would be dealt damage, remove that many cards in your graveyards from the game instead. If you can't, you lose the game. If you would gain life, draw that many cards instead. If Nefarious Lich leaves play, you lose the game. So this is a very risky card to have out. It will keep you alive based on the number of cards in your graveyard, but other than that, I think it's too risky to use. Too much could happen that would cause you to lose the game. New Frontiers. Each player may search his or her library for up to X basic lands and put them into play tapped. And then each player who searched their library shuffles it, spreading a blanket of growth to warm a weary world. Nimble Mongoose for 1 green. Nimble Mongoose cannot be target spells or abilities, and if you have threshold, it gets +2/+2 into end of turn. Good card. Faster than a cobra's bite. I guess this cobra can't do anything about it because it has all these mongoose around it. Unless this mongoose is moving so fast, these are after images. Poor cobra. Nomad Decoy. Pay a white, tap it, tap target creature. And if you have threshold, you can pay 2 white and tap 2 creatures. If you can take something from a Nomad, it's probably bait. Nomad Stadium. Taps for a white and then does the damage to you. If you have threshold, you can sacrifice it to gain 4 life. Nut Collector. For 6, it's a 1/1. At the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a 1/1 green squirrel token into play. Once you have threshold, squirrels you control get +2/+2, making this card a beast. I got a message somewhere real quick. Obstinate Familiar. It's a 1/1 lizard for 1 red. If you would draw a card, you may skip drawing that card instead. Lizards make excellent familiars. They never know when they've lost. Matok the Lava Mancer. Why you would want to skip drawing a card? I would say if you don't have any more cards in your library, then you won't lose the game in that way. Otarian Juggernaut. For 4, it's a 2/3 artifact creature that can't be blocked by walls. If you have Threshold, it gets power +3 and attacks each turn if able. Overeager Apprentice. 3 mana for a 1/2 minion. Discard a card from your hand. Sacrifice the Apprentice to add 3 black mana to your mana pool. A weak-ass Dark Ritual. This kid blew himself in half trying to do this spell. Slow and steady may not always win the race, but at least it doesn't end up splattered on the walls. Overrun for 5. Creatures you control get +3/+3 and trample to end turn. This card is reprinted. The Dance of Angry Feet. Antuka expression meaning stampede. I don't know what these little... Oh, these are like little terror bird chicks. Thought they were lawn gnomes for a second. Painbringer for 4. It's a 1/1. Tap it. Remove any cards in your graveyard from the game. Target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn, where X is the number of cards revealed in this way. Partic Firecat. 4 mana, 2/3 with haste. If Partic Firecat is in your graveyard, it counts as Flame Burst. Oh, yeah. I forgot that this adds to the Flame Burst. I've heard of putting the cat out, but this isn't what I had in mind. Partic Miner. 1/1 dwarf. Sacrifice them. Target player can't play lands this turn. Punch and drag. Toss the slag. Sift the soil. Leave the spoil. Partic Swordsmith. It's a 1/1 dwarf. Pay a red. Discard a card at random from your hand. It gets power +2 until end of turn. A finely crafted blade will never meet as many blows on the battlefield as it did on the anvil. Patchwork Gnomes. For 3, discard a card from your hand. Regenerate Patchwork Gnomes. When building gnomes, dwarves adhere to the highest standards. The gnomes themselves aren't as particular. Guess they're fixing themselves. Patriarch's Desire. Enchanted creature gets +2, -2. And enchanted creature gets an additional +2, -2 once you have Threshold. Patrol Hound. It's the white dog. Discard card from your hand. Patrol Hound gains first strike until end of turn. To the camp, it was a fierce and loyal protector. To the Sentry's youngest daughter, it would always be her love muffin. Patron Wizard. Tap an untapped wizard you control to counter a spell unless its controller pays 1. The best way to teach is by example. This is a very powerful wizard for a wizard deck. Pedantic Learnings. Whenever a land is put into your graveyard from your library, you may pay 1 if you do draw a card. Even the trivial can inspire. Peek. Look at target player's hand for a blue, and then you get to draw a card. Sometimes you have to read between the lines. Persuasion. For 5, you control enchanted creature. Protocol demands that you bow down before me. I always stand on protocol. I should say that to people at work. Petrified Field. Tap, add 1 colors to your mana pool. Tap and sacrifice it. Return target land from your graveyard to your hand. Excuse me. I guess I talked too much today. My voice is starting to turn raw. This is the field of the statues after the Mirari blew up Kartar's camp. Phantatog. You can sacrifice an enchantment or discard a card from your hand, and he gets +1/+1 for each of those that get ditched. It looks like a frog. Phantom Whelp, the blue dog. Whenever it attacks or blocks, it goes back into your hand at the end of combat. It lurks in the mist, waiting for stragglers to fall behind. When the fog clears, nothing remains but footprints. Artwork is cool, but the card itself is okay. The green, red, and white dogs were the better ones. Here was the leader of the order before Kurtarg accidentally killed her. Piana, the nomad captain. Whenever Piana attacks, attack creatures get +1/+1 until end of turn. Some find inspiration in their swords, others find it in their leaders. Pilgrim of Justice has protection from red. Pay white, sacrifice him. The next time a red source would deal damage to any target, prevent that damage. I would die 1,000 deaths before I let you harm another. Pilgrim of Virtue. Here's my favorite boy, the Mind Slicer. Protection from black, and he does the same thing as the last Pilgrim, except against black. A life is measured by the lives it saves. Piper's Melody. For a green, shuffle any number of creatures from your graveyard back into your deck. Those who follows nature's path eventually walk in a circle. Follows nature's path all the time. Here's a Field of Plains. This one's a more farmland looking one. Oh, this one's like a African veldt complete with a monsoon thunderstorm. And we have a druid standing here. And this looks like a photograph of a field out here in Florida. Predict. Name a card, then put the top card of your library. Name a card, then put the top card of target player's library into their graveyard. If that card was the named card, you draw 2 cards. Otherwise, you just draw 1. You would have to know what they have on top in order to get the most out of that card. Price of Glory. Whenever a player taps a land for mana during another player's turn, destroy that land. Truth Strength lies in action. Let the weak react to me. Kamal the Pit Fighter. This hoses blue, or mainly any deck that wants to do stuff on your own turn. This kills counter spells. Mainly is what I'm trying to say. Primal Frenzy. Enchanted creature gains trample for 1 green. Don't dismiss its anger as mindless fury. I assure you it has purpose. If you have Rancor is so much better than this card. It does that and a lot more. Psionic Gift. Enchanted creature has tap, deal 1 damage to any target. For sale, complete Wizard's Library. Rare scrolls, grimoires, and works of ancient spellcrafting. Slightly abridged. Psychotog. This guy saw a heavy tournament play. He almost looks like Gilman or from the Creature of the Black Lagoon. Discard a card in your hand. He gets +1/+1 until end of turn. Remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game. He gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So if you let's say you discard 6 cards in your hand. He gets +6/+6. Then you remove those discarded cards from your graveyard. He'll gain an additional +3/+3. So he'll get +9/+9. But you would have to hope that the game is going to end pretty soon to ditch all that stuff that you could have otherwise played. Pulsating Illusion. I really don't know where this thing's head is. Or what it is. 5 mana, 0/1 flying. Discard a card from your hand. It gets +4/+4 until end of turn. You can only use this ability once a turn. I don't like it. Puppeteer. Pay a blue, tap, or untap target creature. Getting people to do what you want is merely a matter of telling them what they want to hear. Rabid Elephant. 5 mana for a 3/4. When Rabid Elephant becomes blocked, it gets +2/+2 into end of turn for each creature that's blocking it. When in doubt, stomp. Ravaged Highlands comes to play tap it for a red, or you can sacrifice it for 1 mana of any color. Ray of Distortion, destroy target artifact or enchantment, and it has flashback at 6. This guy's sword got bent in all sorts of manner, and he kind of finds it funny. Reckless Charge, target creature gets power +3 and haste until end of turn with flashback. This guy shot off a mountain. I don't know if he's controlling where he's going. It could be a look of fear or rage. Recoup, target sorcery card gains flashback until end of turn. Its flashback cost is equal to its mana cost, and this card itself does have flashback. Refresh. Regenerate a creature. Draw a card. Death is a moth that dances toward our inner flame. The brightest fire can singe its wings. And Tuco teaching. Repel. Put target creature on top of its owner's library. This bear is being repelled back into the aether. I have a hunch we'll be seeing that one again soon. Quote from Ambassador Loquatus. Repentant Vampire. This is the other card that was on, or this is the continued artwork from, I mentioned Gallantry earlier. I believe Gallantry, the artwork is on the right-hand side of this card. This section could be seen on it. 5 mana for a 3/3 vampire with flying. Whenever a creature dealt damage by a repentant vampire this turn dies, put a +1/+1 counter on the vampire. If you have Threshold, the repentant vampire becomes a white creature and has tap, destroy target black creature. Well, that's a lot of text. Resilient Wanderer. 2/3 with first strike. Discard card from your hand. The Wanderer gains protection from the colors of your choice until end of turn. Nomads understand many cultures and therefore travel without fear. Beautiful artwork. Rites of Initiation. Discard any number of cards at random from your hand. Creatures you control get power +1 until end of turn for each card you discarded in this way. Risky. Rites of Refusal. Discard any number of cards in your hand. Counter a spell unless its controller pays 3 for each card you discarded. Rites of Spring. Discard any number of cards from your hand. Search your library for that many basic lands and put them into your hand. Shuffle afterwards. Roar of the Worm. 7 mana for a 6/6 worm. This worm's about to eat this building and it has flashback for 4. This is a rare case where the flashback cost is way less than its original casting cost. Rotting Giant. 2 mana for a 3/3 zombie giant. When he attacks or blocks, you must sacrifice it unless you remove a card in your graveyard from the game. Racked with rot, it wrecks and runes. Sacred Rites. Discarding a number of cards from your hand. Creatures you control get +1 toughness until end of turn for each discarded card. Sadistic Hypnotist. 5 mana for a 2/2 minion. Sacrifice a creature. Target player discards 2 cards from their hand. You can only use this ability during your turn. Victory in the Pits is almost as rewarding as the methods I used to achieve it. Sandstone Deadfall. Tap it, sacrifice 2 of your lands and this Deadfall to destroy target attacking creature. 2 or 3 tons of rot can really get you down and keep you there, the Kamal Pit Fighter. Sarkatog. This looks like a nightmare version of Golem. Golem looked nightmare enough as is. Remove 2 cards in your graveyard from the game and sacrifice an artifact. He gets +1/+1 for each method. Savage Firecat. 5 mana. It comes into play with 7 +1/+1 counters. So 5 mana, 7/7 with trample. Whenever you tap a land, you must remove a +1/+1 counter from the Savage Firecat. So you'd want to play this card and then you don't want to play anything else until your Firecat dies if you want to get the most out of it. I had a red cat deck before, but it really wasn't that successful. I did have one Savage Firecat in it, but I don't remember ever using it. Scorching Missile. For 4, deal 4 damage to a player, and it has flashback of 10. Looks like a little fireball. Screams of the Damned. Pay 5, and then 2. Remove a card in your graveyard from the game. Screams of the Damned deals 1 damage to all creatures and players. It's important to face your inner demons unless they're the kind of demons that can kill you. Scrivener. When Scrivener comes into play, you may return an instant from your graveyard and put it into your hand. A good memory is no match for a good scribe. Seafloor Debris. It's the blue land. We can see a whale in the background. Oh, I think I see a shark too. Taps for a blue, or you can sacrifice it and get 1 mana of any color from it. Second Thoughts. Remove target attacking creature from the game. Draw a card. It suddenly dawned on Joran that farming was quite a noble profession. Seize the Day. For all you Event Sevenfold fans, it's a beautiful song. Untap target creature. After this phase, there is an additional combat phase, and then you get to play cards again after, and it has flashback of 3. Seaton, the Croson Protector. He's a 2/2 centaur. Tap any untapped druid you control to add 1 green to your mana pool. Survival of the fittest is not only the law of the pits, it is the law of nature. That is why I fight. He is decked out to the teeth with swords. Seaton's desire. He wants to be the strongest. Enchanted creature gets +2/+2. All creatures able to block enchanted creature do so. Shadowblood Egg. It's the black-red egg that you sacrifice and draw a card for the corresponding mana. Does your passion for power consume your soul? Watnik the Master Glassblower. Shadowblood Ridge is the signet land. The carnage of conflicts long past still stains the Otarian soil. Shadow Mage Infiltrator. 3 mana for a 1/3 with fear. When Shadow Mage Infiltrator deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. This card was designed in his likeness. It was from Kai Bud, I want to say. I could be wrong. But a professional Magic player who won a tournament. One of the prizes for one of the tournaments is you can help design a card, and then the artist will put your face on the artwork. Forever making you immortal in the world of Magic. Shelter. Target creature you control gains protection from the color of your choice until end of turn, and you can draw a card. Good strategists seize opportunities. Great strategists make their own. Shifty Doppelganger. It's a 3 mana 1/1 shapeshifter. Pay 4, remove it from the game. Put a creature from your hand into play. That creature gains haste until end of turn. At the end of turn, sacrifice the creature, and then return the Doppelganger back to the battlefield. Shower of Coals. For 5, deal 2 damage to each of up to 3 target creatures and or players. If you have Threshold, it does 4 damage instead. Simplify. For 1 green, each player sacrifices an enchantment. A blossom's petals close inward to shut out the frost. And 2 go teaching. Skeletal Scrying. As additional cost to cast it, remove X cards in your graveyard from the game. Draw X cards and lose X life. It's a powerful card draw spell. Skull Fracture. Here, Mind Slicer is bumping 2 heads together. Target player discards a card from their hand, and it has flashback of 4. Skycloud Egg. Taps for white, blue, and draw a card after sacking it. Have your dreams of a better society become an obsession? Watnik, the Master Glassblower. All his little treasures and trinkets, he asks questions. Skycloud Expanse. From Otaria, the sun above meets the sea below at a glittering horizon. It's a white-blue signet land. Sky Shooter. Can block creatures with flying. Tap it, sacrifice it, destroy target attacking or block creature with flying. He took down an Aven in flight. Soul Catcher. 2 mana 1/1 bird soldier with flying. When a creature with flying dies, put a +1/+1 counter on Soul Catcher. Holy Couriers guide Aven spirits up to the home of the ancestor. This is probably one of the best Avens in the game. Spark Mage. 1/1 Dwarf Wizard for a red. When Spark Mage deals combat damage to a player, you may deal 1 damage to target creature that player controls. The Pardic Mountains are known for their spicy cuisine. Spellbane Centaur. 3 mana for a 3/2. Creatures you control cannot be the target of blue spells or abilities from blue sources. No Mage's Deception can harm those who keep nature balanced. This card hoses blue. Sphere of Duty. If a green source would deal damage to you, prevent 2 of that damage. Duty subdues instinct. So instead of circles of protection now, they're making spheres. Spear of Grace does the same thing against black. Grace repels darkness. Law to red. Law smothers anarchy. Spear of Reason. Reason exposes deception. And Spear of Truth for white. Truth tempers fanaticism. Spiritualize. Until end of turn, whenever target creature deals damage, you gain that much life, and you get to draw a card. There is purity in all things, even hatred. And Kurtar was full of it. Springing Tiger. 4 mana for a 3/3 cat. If you have Threshold, it gets +2/+2. The ground trembled in a violent purr. Squirrel Mob. Squirrel Mob gets +1/+1 for each other squirrel in play. An army of squirrels is still an army. I would not want an army of squirrels crawling all over me. They got a very nasty bite. Squirrel Nest. Enchanted Land has tapped. Put a 1/1 green squirrel token into play. And we can see the squirrel has an eyeball. In the Croson Forest, you've got to keep an eye out for squirrels. That's funny. Keep an eye out. My stomach's growling. I'm going to eat something after this. Stalking Bloodsucker. 6 mana vampire with flying. Pay 2, discard a card from your hand. Stalking Bloodsucker gets +2/+2 until end of turn. The pits feed both its thirst for combat and thirst for blood. The artwork looks great. It reminds me of Underworld, but the card itself, outdated. A lot of better vampires in the game now. Standstill. Whenever a player plays a spell, sacrifice Standstill. If you did, each of that player's opponents draws 3 cards. Take your time. Good card draw. If your opponent doesn't want you to draw cards anymore, they're not going to play any spells. But at the same time, if they don't fall into that, if you play a spell, your opponent's going to be able to draw the 3 cards. Steam Claw. It's an artifact. Pay 3, tap it. Remove a card in a graveyard from the game. Pay 1, sacrifice it. Remove a card in a graveyard from the game. Ouch. Steam Vines. Goes on a land. When enchanted land becomes tapped, destroy it, and Steam Vines does 1 damage to that land's controller. That player chooses where that player then moves Steam Vines to another land of their choice. And it'll just keep going back and forth until there are no land left or the enchantment's destroyed. Still Life. For 3, pay double green. Still Life becomes a 4/3 centaur until end of turn. It still counts as an enchantment. The centaur's simple magic can undo a basilisk's gaze, but only for a short time. It looks like at one point the centaur did get turned to stone, and this is how he becomes animated. What I find pretty cool is most centaurs have the lower body of a horse. This centaur has the lower body of a bear. And I thought that was pretty cool. Pretty cool idea for Matt Cavota. Stone Tongue Basilisk. 7 mana for a 4/5 Basilisk. When it deals combat damage to a creature, destroy that creature at end of combat. If you have Threshold, all creatures able to block the Stone Tongue Basilisk do so. Sungrass Egg for green and white. Has your peaceful nature led you on a crusade? It's probably the most positive one. Sungrass Prairie. On Oteria, peace and harmony are rare. Places that provide both are cherished. You can see a nice little hut with a village or a wall or, I don't know, farm, crops, pets. Who knows? Here's a swamp. This one looks like a swamp from Florida. We got the, what are they called? Cypress knees, because they're the roots of the cypress tree that grow above ground, and people who aren't foot savvy might hit their shin or knock their knees against these. And then we see the Spanish moss hanging on the trees. Being from Florida, I can appreciate this artwork. Here's a closer look at the water. The water has algae on top. This is like a beautiful artwork, man. This water to me is hard to pull off when painting, but this is perfect. This is almost photograph worthy. This is a basic looking fog covered swamp. And then we have a swamp where that is so dense, so misty, so humid. You got the dark water rippling around the tree trunks. like I said, the Odyssey lands were they're awesome. They got me speechless. Sylvan Might. For 2, target creature gets +2/+2 into end of turn, and it has flashback of 4. What started off, I don't know if this is like a wolf or a squirrel, but it grew into this monstrosity. Syncopate. A blue and X, counter target spell unless its control pays X. If the spell is removed this way from, if the spell has been countered, remove it from the game instead. Memories can't simply be washed away. The mind must be scrubbed clean. Quote from Ambassador Laquatus. Remove the top card of your library from the game. You may put that card into your hand unless it has the same name as another card you've removed in this way. Repeat this process until you put a card into your hand or you remove 2 cards with the same name, whichever comes first. Definitely don't want to use that in Commander. Or I should say, Expand and Brawl. Tarnished Citadel. Tap it for colorless. Tap it, add 1 mana of any color, but then the Tarnished Citadel deals 3 damage to you. So it's a City of Brass with a lot more painful downside. Tattoo Ward. Chain creature gets +1/+1 and has protection from enchantments. This effect does not remove Tattoo Ward, and then you can sacrifice Tattoo Ward to destroy an enchantment. Terravore. 3 mana trample. Power toughness to reach equal number of lands in all graveyards. It's a cool looking monster made out of the terrain. Testament of Faith. It's an enchantment for 1 white. Pay X. Testament of Faith becomes an XX wall until end of turn. It cannot attack. Belief in the ancestor is admirable, but our enemies often demand something more tangible. Piano the Captain. Thaumatog has the sacrifice landed enchantments to get +1/+1 for each one they do sacrifice. I do like its combat looking stance. Thermal Blast. For 5, it does 3 damage to a creature. If you have Threshold, deal 5 damage to it instead. Think Tank. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at the top card of your library. You may choose to put it into your graveyard. Cephalids seek knowledge not to better themselves, but to best others. Thought Devourer. For 4, it's a 4/4 flying, which is good. However, your maximum hand size is reduced by 4. Meaning that if you have more than 3 cards in your hand at the end of your turn, you have to discard down to 3. Thinking is hard. I like how like alien jellyfish looking this thing is. And in order for you to use it, it's got to feed on your thoughts. And that's what forces your maximum hand size to be reduced. Here we see the proboscis of it stabbed into the guy's brain. There are more thought creatures that we're going to see, like Thought Eater. He's the 2 mana 2/2 flying. The maximum hand size is reduced by 3. The first memory it sucks out of its host is how to get rid of it. It's pretty cool. Thought Nibbler's the baby of the bunch. 1 mana 1/1 flying. Your maximum hand size is reduced by 2. Valshan wizards have long used them to gnaw away the memories they wish to forget. And this thing just does all sort of like connection. It uses its tentacles to latch into your ears, and then it dug its teeth, mandibles, into the top of this person's frontal lobe. Timberland Runes comes into play. Taps for a green, or you can tap and sacrifice it for 1 mana of any color. Time Stretch. Target player takes 2 extra turns after this one. There's lots of times like the present. I almost thought this was Urza at first. I don't know if Urza got his head cut off and vaporized during the Phyrexian explosion, so it's not him. Tireless Tribe. Discard a card from your hand. Tireless Tribe gets +4 toughness until end of turn. We've survived starvation, dwarf attacks, and heat stroke. Why should a little sandstorm bother us? Tomb Fire. For 1 black, target player removes all cards with flashback in their graveyard from the game. The fondest memories burn brightest. As they're lost forever, the flames grow hotter still. Touch of Invisibility. Target creature becomes unblockable until end of turn. Draw a card. Cephalids specialize in things unseen, be they politics, betrayal, or themselves. Traumatized. Target player puts half their library into their graveyard, rounded down. Dreads had half a mind to leave. That's funny. The good combo in this set would be traumatize your opponent and then cast Haunting Echoes on them. That would definitely thin out their library and probably cripple their deck. Traveling Plague. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, put a Plague counter on Traveling Plague. Enchanted creature gets -1/-1 for each Plague counter on it. If enchanted creature dies, that creature's controller returns Traveling Plague to play on another creature instead. COVID. Treetop Sentinel. 4 mana for a 2/3 flying with protection from green. Cryan's patrols offer him plenty of opportunity to take pot shots at dirt walkers far below. And them birds think very lowly of us without wings. Tremble. Each player sacrifices a land. Otaria's frequent tremors are the last stages of Dominaria's recovery from the Phyrexian War. Twig Walker. 3 mana 2/2 bug. Pay 2, sacrifice it. 2 target creatures get +2/+2 until end of turn. Break 1 in half and you'll get a decent, if gooey, pair of weapons. Unifying Theory. Whenever a player plays a spell, that player may pay 2 additional mana. If they do, they draw a card. Scribbles of a Lunatic and Formulas of a Genius are often indistinguishable. Upheaval. Return all permanents to their owner's hand. This does include land. The calm comes after the storm. Vampiric Dragon. 8 mana 5/5 flying. Whenever a creature dies, if Vampiric Dragon dealt damage to them, put a +1/+1 counter on it. And then you pay red and a colorless, deal 1 damage to target creature. That helps the Vampiric Dragon get larger and larger with each creature that dies. And also, vampires are cool, dragons are cool, best of both worlds. Verdant Succession. Whenever a green non-token creature dies, search that creature's controller, or that creature's controller may search his or her library for a card with the same name and put it onto the battlefield. If they do, they shuffle afterwards. So the more of these bushmen you kill, the more are going to grow back. Same with these rockmen. Vivify. Target land becomes a 3/3 until end of turn. It's still a land. Draw a card. Near the Croson border, farmers keep watch over their fields, lest the sod get up and wander away. Volcanic Spray deals 1 damage to each creature without flying in each player, and it has flashback at 2. I would not want to be near that spray at all. Or the Spalia Boulders, which does 6 damage divided as you choose among any number of targets. Cost 9 to cast, though, and its flashback is 6. Wayward Angel. 6 mana for a 4/4 Angel Horror. Attacking doesn't cause it to tap. Once you have Threshold, it becomes a 7/7 black creature with trample. And at the beginning of your upkeep, sacrifice a creature. So the Angel transfers from Angel to Demon. Werebear. This is much better than the dirty Were-Rat. For 2, it's a 1/1 Druid Bear. Tap it for a green. If you have Threshold, he gets +3/+3 until end of turn. He exercises his right to bear arms. Look at him. That's some grisly humor. I think I have to thank Magic the Gathering. I make a lot of puns, and Magic's probably taught me a lot of it. Whipkeeper. 4 mana for a 1/1 dwarf. Tap it to deal damage to target creature equal to the damage they already took this turn. If you don't hit your adversaries while they're down, they might get up again. Whispering Shade. It's a shade with Swamp Walk. It does cost 4, but it does have the Shade ability. It glides through the shadows until it reaches yours. Wild Mongrel. By far the best dog from the 5-card cycle. Discard a card from your hand. Wild Mongrel gets +1/+1 until end of turn and becomes the colors of your choice. It teaches you to play dead. Woodland Druid. It's a druid for 1 green. It's a 1/2. What is a tree? Slow, hard thought. What is a flower? Swift, soft flesh. What is a druid? Both. Words of Wisdom. You draw 2 cards and each other player draws 1. Knowledge can't be kept in a bottle or sealed in a box. It yearns to be spread and shared. That's why snitches are around. Zombie Assassin for 5. It's a 3/2. Tap it, remove 2 cards in your graveyard and Zombie Assassin from the game to destroy target non-black creature. It cannot be regenerated. Zombies don't kill, they recruit. Braids of Dementia Summoner. Zombie Cannibal. Whenever he deals combat damage to a player, you may remove a card from that player's graveyard. Nothing is sacred to the undead, not even their own kind. Zombie Infestation. 2-mana enchantment. Discard 2 cards from your hand to get a 2/2 zombie token. The Nomad's Funeral Pyres are more practical than ceremonial. Zombify. Return target card from your grave. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. The first birth celebrates life. The second birth mocks it. Mystic Elder. And the Zoologist. For 4, it's a 1/2 druid. Pay 4, reveal the top card of your library. If it's a creature, put it into play. Otherwise, it goes in your graveyard. With friends like these, who needs people? That's what I'm saying. This is my goal in life. I want a wolf at my side, a bird of prey at my fingertips. From bunny rabbits to gorillas to... What else do we got here? I'm not sure. Oh, that's just a tree. Oh, here's my snake. Snake's right here, coiled up. Almost looks like Jesus with glasses. Does he have glasses? He does have glasses. Look at that. And I think we're at the end. Yep, Zoologist was the last card in the Odyssey set. So we're going to scroll back to Mindslaver. Oh, crap, I just messed up. There we go. This completes the Odyssey stream. Oh, one more. I believe he's at the bottom. We will continue the story and the card review next week with Torment. And I mentioned Chainer. He's one of the... he ends up gaining the Patriarch's favor and being a strong Cabal member. But with that success comes Torment. And we'll find out why on the next stream. So were you playing Magic when Odyssey was brand new? What favorite cards did you see that, or you may have forgotten? Which cards are you interested in? If you have a commander that you want to play, let me know in the comment section below. And I'll see you next time when we dive into Chainer's Torment. Take it easy, everybody, and have a good night.